Hi, Dr. Matthews. This is Rick Altenberg, and this is my thesis presentation video. If you see me looking over to the side, it's just because I have some notes that I'm going to be reading from. So my topic was the conflict between Protestants and Catholics in 17th century Maryland. I chose this topic because I took a class on Jamestown and the founding of Virginia last year, and I found religious conflict in the early colonies to be super interesting. So I focused on Maryland because the broader topic of religious conflict in the colonies would have been too complicated and too lengthy for a senior thesis. So I focused on Maryland also because it was unique in that it was founded by a Catholic as a haven for religious liberty. So I actually also found out that my professor, Dr. McMillan, from the Historic Preservation Department, wrote her dissertation on this topic. So I figured she could probably help me get started researching, which she did. So in my topic of 17th century Maryland, I focused on two uprisings, and these were Ingalls Rebellion and Coote's Rebellion, because these were essentially the first and last uprisings that were against the proprietary government that was run by Lords Baltimore. So most sources I used in my research were found either in the UMW library or in its databases. I luckily found a book that had a ton of primary source information related to Coote's Rebellion, and that provided the basis of a lot of my primary source research, at least for that topic, because I was very lucky for finding that. The reason why there was a whole book I found out about Coote's Rebellion is because both Ingalls Rebellion and Coote's Rebellions coincided with contemporary English politics, and they coincided with the English Civil War and the Glorious Revolution. So they also can be seen as extensions of these conflicts back in England that carried over into the colonies. So in my research, I found that religious dissension wasn't the primary cause of uprisings, but it basically was an underlying theme that permeated all other reasons for rebellion. So these reasons might include political, financial, or interpersonal conflict between individual Catholics and Protestants. And these uprisings were religiously charged because religion was so intertwined with politics in 17th century Maryland. Basically, there were two political parties, and they were divided based on religious affiliation. So the Catholics were the wealthy landowning elite that ran the government, and Protestants typically were either tenants that lived on the property of Catholics, or they were small-time planters and freemen that they didn't own a lot of land and they had a lot of debt, so they weren't very powerful in terms of government. I found that Ingalls Rebellion and Coote's Rebellion were only two examples of many conflicts that took place in 17th century Maryland, but they were pivotal moments in Maryland's history as well as the history of religious freedom in the United States, because they were so religiously charged and they were so blatantly conflicts between Catholics and Protestants. Thank you.